Mayor, the meeting is not being recorded.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the October 14th, 2024, 6 p.m. regular joint meeting of the Bell Garden City Council and Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order at 6:07 p.m. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any of the members should have a conflict of interest, please announce any item you are recusing from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard. Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Leal, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Girl Scout Troop 2543. City Clerk, please call roll of the members of the City Council and Successor Agency.
Thank you. Mayor, did you want to first have the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance?
Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Yes, of course. Let's do that part first.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, our councilmen, our councilwomen, all the staff. It's so great to be here. As I was walking through the parking lot, such a beautiful afternoon. We are so blessed. And the Bible says as we enter the presence of God when we pray, we should always enter with gratitude. So let us come to our feet, please, and let us bow our heads and let us introduce ourselves before the Lord. Father, we just want to thank you for our city mayor, Father, for each one of the councilmen and councilwomen, the staff, and everybody that makes the city work. Father, thank you for the great job that they do. Father, for the police department and for each one of them. Father, as we come before you, we just want to ask your presence, your guidance, your wisdom to be upon them in a very special way. We ask this in the precious name of Jesus, and can we say amen? Thank you.
Please stay standing. Face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may now be seated.
Okay, now, City Clerk, please call roll of the members of the City Council and Successor Agency.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council and Successor Agency, Chavez.
Present.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena.
Present.
And Mayor Gomez.
Present.
Thank you.
We will now move to the presentations. However, we are going to be moving, we only have one presentation tonight, so we'll be moving that to next week. It's the National Code Enforcement Appreciation Week proclamation, and that will be for next meeting. Sorry, not next week, for next meeting. And with that, we will now begin with item number 1 on the agenda. At this time, I will open the public hearing at 6:10 p.m. City Manager, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Gomez. This item is a consideration of Ordinance 951, amending Title 9, Zoning and Planning Regulations of Bell Gardens Municipal Code to regulate certain electronic displays. I'll turn it over to our Deputy City Manager, Community Development Director, Gus Romo, for a presentation on this item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, Mayor, and members of the City Council. I'm going to have our City Planner, Mr. Stephen Jones, make the presentation tonight.
Mr. Deputy City Manager, Mr. City Manager, Madam Mayor, and honorable council members. My name is Stephen Jones, City Planner for the City of Bell Gardens Community Development Department. And our presentation will be up momentarily. In the meantime, today your council will hear background on the need for the regulation, associated considerations your council has already introduced to contribute locally to regional infrastructure goals, and recommended action to support the local economy and streamline building permit processing for public and private economic development projects. And as stated just a moment ago, your council has already considered ordinance number 950, which was for electronic permitting for electric vehicle charging stations. or rather the permit streamlining for that, and here we are. So it is recommended that the city council determine ordinance number 951 categorically exempt from CEQA, waive full reading, and introduce ordinance number 951 by title only, and conduct a public hearing to consider ordinance number 951 to add regulations for electronic display signs for dispensing pumps. And so again, recently, the city has considered an ordinance to align with state goals and mandates to establish permitting procedures to streamline the review of issuances of EVCS permit issuances to promote the installation and the use of electric vehicle charging stations in public and private properties. However, there are currently no provisions to regulate electronic display signs that are becoming more common to fuel stations and EV charging stations in the city code. Electronic display signs with advertising capabilities are more common due to their revenue generating potential for property owners, and it is crucial to implement design standards to encourage neighborhood compatibility and blending into the existing fabric of neighborhoods. At the duly noticed, regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of September 18th, 2024, the Planning Commission adopted Resolution PC 2024-20, recommending to the City Council approval of the zoning code amendment and adoption of ordinance number 951. The definition and purpose sections are consistent with local, county, and state definitions. The ordinance would introduce specific regulations to facilitate advertising capabilities. The circulation element would be complied with, and it promotes electronic display signs on dispensing pumps, which would encourage and facilitate mobility citywide, supporting policy M.54. And the land use element would be complied with in policy 3, since ordinance number 951 would promote contribution to the local economy, and policy 5 encourages residents and visitors to frequent local businesses to stimulate private and local economic interests. The city could also use the opportunity to create revenue for potential EVCS projects on city property. So in conclusion, your council just heard background on the need for regulation, associated considerations that your council has already adopted. An adoption of this ordinance would enable individuals and businesses to remain relevant and competitive through electronic display sign usage for presenting public information and marketing through digital communication and targeted content. It is recommended that the City Council determine the ordinance categorically exempt, waive full reading, and introduce 951 by title only, and conduct a public hearing to consider ordinance number 951 to add regulations for electronic display signs. And this concludes my staff presentation. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. We will now move to council member questions or comments. Does any member of the council have any questions or comments?
I just want to know if there's any, or if there are any businesses currently waiting for this to pass in order to implement some type of monitor or screen at their local businesses, or is it just something that we're doing to comply with the changes?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, this is something that the Super A particularly has asked for, and so we did get some feedback about not having standards and having no real mechanism to address this. So this is something that has come with EVCS, but also as a result of folks asking for it, looking for ways to increase their revenue.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I do have a question. So you were talking about how these could help us to generate revenue for the city, and can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. At some point, the public infrastructure could accommodate EVCS charging stations, rather, as well. And so if the city has a program to implement their own charging station, whether it be on the public right-of-way or in publicly owned property, we could use that as an opportunity to generate revenue from advertising. In the same way that the billboards and other electronic displays afford.
And do we have an estimate of what that would cost
At this point,
and
no.
how that would be funded?
We may have some general idea, since we looked at the EBOD, or the electronic billboard overlay districts. those generate a lot more, let's say, than what standard, smaller EVCS advertising would produce. So on order of magnitude, I don't have a number for you exactly, but we also have no EVCS right now. So that's something we could look into to say, once we look at if there's going to be a state mandate, for example, for those charging stations on private and public property, we could look at what it would mean to generate revenue from those.
And in order to pay for this, do you know of any like grant programs, grant funding, anything that could be accessed to cover whatever the cost may be?
Yes, Madam Mayor, there are programs now that are advertising, or excuse me, targeting smaller jurisdictions to, again, look at regional goals for improving the air quality, for example, so facilitating EVCS charging stations across the region. So there are opportunities for us to look at grants. We have several partnerships with the Gateway Cities Council of Governments that keeps us abreast of information and grant opportunities to implement those charging stations. So we could look into that as well and see what the city could offer in terms of not only bringing grants to install, but programs that would help us navigate the landscape of the new advertising frontier. So we actually are involved in several grant opportunities now, looking at the feasibility of us applying and being awarded those grants.
Great, thank you so much. If we have no more questions or comments, we will now open public comments for this item. I will call 3 speakers at a time. Please make your way over to the podium to line up. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item number 1 as listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through Zoom may make a request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will first hear from speakers that are in person, and we did not receive any written communications, and I did not receive any public comment cards for this public hearing item number 1.
Okay, thank you. If there is no objection by members of the City Council Successor Agency, I will close public participation for public hearing item number 1. If there are no further council member questions or comments, I will now close the public hearing at 6:20 p.m. May I have a motion to waive the full reading and introduce ordinance number 951 by title only to add regulations for certain electronic display signs?
I make a motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez?
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena?
Yes.
And Mayor Gomez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We will now move to public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Public participation is now open. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, subject to an overall 30-minute period. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may make a request by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will first hear from speakers that are in person, and there were no written communications submitted.
Thank you. We will begin with John Briscoe.
So I'm John Briscoe, your family man. Es uno de nosotros. So un poquito mexicano, mi tatabuela was from Baja California in 1905. That qualifies a little bit. I'm running for U.S. Congress to represent you as your family man, John Briscoe. I'm holding my sign up. Is that where the camera's aiming from? Okay. Put over here, or over here. hold it up here. John Briscoe. I've been on your ballot a few times. I was on your ballot in March. And I defeated 2 other people to be on your ballot now in November. Your family man. Es uno de nosotros, John Briscoe. I'm running on 3 major things. First of all, overarching, no new taxes. No new taxes. We don't need to tax how much stuff you have, how much your home is worth. No new taxes. There's 3 big areas that I believe concern my communities in the northern tier. That would be Bell Gardens, Bell, Huntington Park, Maywood, and Commerce, and Cudahy. And that is, one, is the paychecks are too small. Inflation at 30% for the last 3.5 years is killing my families up here. Killing. $6 a dozen eggs, $6 a gallon gas. My residents can't afford it. And I say residents because even if you can't vote for me, you can support me. And all the people who live up here are not voters or citizens, but you're still residents. And I will work to represent everybody, all the people in the district. And I will get rid of the inflation. And the current administration says, oh, inflation is down, ooh la la. No. The rate of growth is down, but we still have inflation. Things are still, beef is twice as much as it was 4 years ago. The second reason I'm running is to stop crime. The crime is too darn high, especially homelessness. Well, I know we're in Bell Gardens. There is no homeless problem in Bell Gardens, but the other cities around you, no, there's no laughing. The other cities around you have homeless problems, and I have a solution for it. The big idea is that 60% of the people that are homeless are under the influence of something. It's against the law, state law, to be under the influence of anything on public property, curbs, streets, alleys, take your pick. And we're not enforcing those laws. The law is 6 months in jail or a $1,000 fine max. And we're not doing those things. We could fix a lot of the problem with that. We also need to open up Norwalk and Fairview and the Camarillo asylums for people that are sick. I had a lady walking down the street in front of my office in Long Beach, buck naked. It was stunning. She's not mentally well. She needs to be taken care of, and nothing was happening. So as a congressman, I will work to fund those. The third reason I'm running is to close the border. We have too many people. 18 million people flooding in is too much. They're killing the jobs, in especially my jobs up in the northern tier, taking jobs and reducing wages. My residents need higher wages, not lower wages. And they don't need 18 million people flooding in across the border. So John Briscoe for U.S. Congress, on your ballot, United States Congress, California 42, for Bell Gardens. I love Bell Gardens. That's it? Okay. Thank you.
The next speaker is Victoria.
Buenas tardes, señores. Soy Victoria. Estoy aquí por la situación de los dueños de las trailas ubicadas en el 5825 de la Florence. Se está saliendo de control. Mi esposo y yo fuimos estafados por la señora Cecilia con sumas de dinero muy altas que nos robaron la traila y que compramos y ellos nos la quitaron a la fuerza con mentiras y engaños. También estamos afectados por una inquilina a la cual ya hemos denunciado por agresiones, intimidación. Vengo aquí a que me den una solución, ya que la policía no atiende a nuestros llamados. Somos gente de bien, personas mayores y y nos pusieron atención a nuestras demandas sobre esta comprensión. Quisiera una solución por lo que está pasando allí en esas trailas. Y es todo. Gracias.
Lilia Chávez.
tardes. Miren, ya vine de nuevo. Ven que a veces uno viene nada más a decir y poner quejas, pero en esta ocasión me toca venir a agradecerles a todos los que han atendido este lugar donde estamos viviendo. Yo espero que no quiten el dedo del renglón. La señora sigue con la misma situación. Entonces, yo vengo a eso, a agradecerles. Hoy estuvo presente Jorgel y yo les agradezco. Él se dio cuenta realmente de lo que está pasando ahí. Él entró y agarró todo y yo no sé cómo saldría. Pero realmente, aparte de la persona problemática, de los malos olores, de los animales y todo, está ahí. Pero cada uno ha hecho su trabajo y yo vengo a agradecerles. Porque realmente yo sé que ustedes no van a quitar el dedo del renglón, porque ahí hay algo más aparte de esa persona problemática y con la dueña que nos cobra la renta. Entonces, yo quisiera que esculcaran un poquito más ustedes que tienen acceso, háganlo, porque ahí hay algo más. Están haciendo atrocidades con las personas que tienen sus trailers, se las están quitando prácticamente y pues a veces las personas no tienen conocimiento, no saben cómo defenderse y de ahí se agarran. Y yo de verdad estoy bien agradecida con todos, oficiales, con Jorgel, con Marco, con todos ustedes que cooperaron para todo esto y que siguen haciéndolo. Y quiero y les pido que no quiten el dedo de renglón, porque yo sé que ahí van a encontrar algo que no es nada legal y nada normal. Muchas gracias a todos, porque yo estoy contenta con ustedes. Gracias.
Gracias. Lisa Luna.
Hello, I am Lisa Luna, a veteran of SIACA for almost 15 years. I've been speaking on behalf of the hardworking employees at SIACA. My coworkers and I continue to speak in other cities. I just came off from work. I encounter countless homeless animals interacting and socializing for the sake of the animal adopter and rescue. I am known as a Chihuahua whisperer, though I specialize in skittish animals, big or small, providing trust and comfort. Management continues to get raises and it has 100% free medical, while the frontline workers are putting their lives at risk for the bare minimum. Calls are going to keep getting unanswered due to staffing, putting the community and animals at risk. New hires shouldn't be training each other. Part-time extra help shouldn't be training officers. Quality is going to drop drastically. Our staff with just a year's experience or less is having to make decisions for the shelter. Part-time extra help is being assigned to do full-time positions, such as receiving stray animals, owner animals, behavioral, and quarantine bite dogs, while working minimal hours and going to school. Yet they are not allowed to do any animal interactions for the residents in your city who are interested in adopting. It's been a revolving door of employees, limited staff tending to the animals. Last Monday, we only had 2 kennel attendants in the entire shelter. Today, we were closed, yet someone still dropped off an animal. Our work is never done. A new female care technician with animal and child care experience quit after a week due to being belittled when turning in her packet. The 10 current officers have trouble finding a SIACA truck without maintenance issues and a working AC to get a handle on the 370 plus calls. The average when fully staffed is 25 calls or less. Management is actively looking to offer extra services outside of our 14-member and contract cities, adding to our workload while still being underpaid. I'm currently the only one certified and skilled to perform humane euthanasia. The scheduling hasn't been consistent. We don't get to know our animals and their needs this way. Dedication and seniority is not a priority to SIACA. We're still in contract negotiations with minimal movement and are still in need of your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Michelle Peterson.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Peterson. I'm also a 15-year SIACA veteran. As Lisa said, one of the few. There's so few of our staff members that have been there, even double-digit numbers. The animal control officers that we have, I can think of 3 that have been there more than 5 years. We have a terrible staffing problem. I'm sure you have heard complaints from your residents. We've certainly heard many complaints that the response time is incredibly slow. People want to come in and interact with an animal to decide if they want to adopt it, and we don't have enough staff for interactions. On Saturdays, we only have adequate staff to do 30 vaccinations, or a total of 30 pets for vaccinations. It's reached a critical point. We're having trouble just maintaining the level that we have right now. And this isn't even our busy time of year. That was June and July. We are in negotiations with management. We've been working without a contract since July 1st, 2023. The negotiations are sluggish at best. We are seeing very little movement. There doesn't seem to be any reason, in the eyes of management, to make the job attractive. Right now, SIACA animal control officers start at $16.74 an hour. The surrounding communities, Los Angeles County, LA City, they start their animal control officers at $22 and some change per hour. So why wouldn't somebody start at SIACA, get trained, get a little experience, and then go to one of the surrounding areas? I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. Why would anybody stay at SIACA is really the question. We are very interested in maintaining the job that we've been doing. Those of us that are still there love the work that we do, the difference that we make for the animals, for the residents. Someone needs to be there to do this job. And if management won't make the job attractive, they will not be able to retain employees. So we're asking for your support to encourage them to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck Lior? Did I say that right?
You can call me Carlos.
Carlos.
I'm in Bell Garden. Madam Mayor and members of the Bell Gardens City Council, it's a pleasure to be with you again tonight. My name is Charles Leone. You can call me Chuck, call me Carlitos. Just don't call me late for dinner. We're here for you tonight because we are asking for your help. SIACA and the workers you've gotten to know over the last several months, because we have been making the rounds to the various city councils more than once, and you hear their heart. The majority of the bargaining unit makes less, roughly about $16, $16.74. And so earlier, Michelle had said, well, why does somebody stay at SIACA? You could probably make more. Let me just get a job with the city of Downey or the city of Norwalk. I mean, these are the cities that service SIACA, but folks stay at SIACA. SIACA is celebrating its 49th birthday this month. It was born in October of 1975, and it was founded by the cities of Pico Rivera, Norwalk, and Downey. Those are the three founding cities. And then over time, 5 additional cities came along that are the member cities, such as Bell Gardens. And those 8 cities in total all are reps on the SIACA board. It meets the 3rd Thursday of every month. Mr. Barcerena, of course, as you know, has been the rep for SIACA, and each month it meets. And then there are these contract cities that SIACA has as well. In total, it's 14. But it's just the 8 member cities that sit on the SIACA board. And those are the 8 cities that we really have been reaching out to ask for assistance and ask for help. When we started, we've been without a contract for more than a year. Slow movement. City wasn't serious. The agency wasn't serious about talking about money. They were just squibbling over just low-hanging things at the bargaining table without actually getting to the meat of things. Back in May, we decided to go to the Board of Commissioners. First, we met with Mr. Barcerena, who was there, of course, and the other reps, and met them for the first time. We made a presentation, packed the room back in May, and at that time, SIACA was sitting on $1.25 million of revenue, of cash. And this year, the budget was passed in July. This year's budget for SIACA has $600,000 more revenue, more money than it did last year. We're speaking before you because there's a long-standing history and culture at SIACA of being dismissive of workers, of being arrogant. They've been able to do this and get away with it for so long because, in my opinion, the light really hasn't been shined on SIACA. It's a joint power authority. As long as the city thinks that its issues are getting tended to and the animals are able to have a place to get housed, and if there's a call you have here, somebody's able to pick it up. Hey, look, you know what? Less headaches. But the reality is that Siaka over time used to have double the size of staff. Cities used to have dedicated resource officers. You don't have that anymore. How do you have 14 cities and you have only 4 full-time ACOs? Your revolving door is so bad that probationary employees are training other probationary employees. The problem is so bad that right now here in Bell Gardens, you can't be confident that if somebody goes to Siaka this coming Saturday, that they're going to have enough staff to even provide the vaccines. Cross your fingers that they have the staff. We need your help. We need your support, Madam Mayor. We are great.
Your time is over, sir.
Okay. If there is no objection by the members, I will close public participation. City Manager, will you please give your report?
Thank you, Mayor Gomez. Just start by reminding everybody, every Friday from 11 to 3 p.m. at Veterans Park, we have our resident...
Pardon for the interruption. Normally, we go into agenda items, but we didn't receive any public comment, and I just want to note that for the record, we didn't receive any written communications or any public comment cards. My apologies. I just want to make sure that it was noted for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Just a reminder, we have our resident art and yard sale, so it's very popular. It happens every Friday. We don't always talk about it a lot, but it's something that's ongoing and is very popular. Looking backwards, September 29th, so thanks to rec staff, Public Works, Police Department, City Council, residents, stakeholders, we had the Sela to Sinaloa Community Ride, celebrating a residents ride all the way from Bell Gardens to Sinaloa on a bicycle with some spare inner tubes and some other provisions. So thanks everybody for all the work on that event. The police department's been really busy as I go through on some of the things that they have had going on and some things that they're going on with meeting with the community. Wednesday, October 2nd, they had a neighborhood watch meeting at Marlowe Park. I know the mayor was there, Councilmember Jorge Chavez was there as well. On Friday, October 4th, Spirit Family Centers had their candlelight vigil for survivors of domestic violence. So again, thanks to the council, staff, residents, members of Spirit, and other stakeholders that participated in that event. That Saturday, I know the police chief, and I'm sure other police department staff participated in a smoke alarm giveaway and installation program. The next day, October 6th, Sunday, we had the first Memorial Eddie Cochran car show. That was with the Sela Kiwanis, the Bombers, and a couple of the American Legion. The Bicycle Hotel and Casino helped sponsor as well too. So that was a great event, all day event. Somewhere in the several thousand total participants and visitors. So that one was something we'll look forward to in future years. On Wednesday, October 9th, over at McDonald's, the police department had a coffee with a cop that was also well attended. The following day, Thursday, October 10th, police department had an open house, Faith in Blue edition, that was also well attended, and the weather was great out there in the evening in the north parking lot. Moving on a go-forward basis, tomorrow we've got our regular monthly rent stabilization workshop for owners here at 4 p.m. Also tomorrow at 5 p.m., it's at the Southgate Park Auditorium. The Sela Kiwanis and Southgate Kiwanis is having a career and college fair. I believe it's their first. That's tomorrow, Southgate Park Auditorium at 5 p.m. This Wednesday, October 16th, the police department's holding a business watch meeting at 9 a.m. Here at City Hall. I believe the focus is going to be on fraudulent activities, which, interestingly enough, things like that do occur. I saw a report recently of a fairly significant fraudulent activity that went on among businesses within the city of Bell Gardens. So that's a place for businesses. If they're having issues with theft, homelessness, things that the city can help with, crime issues, to share their views, this is a good place to do that. So it's at 9 a.m. this Wednesday here at City Hall. Also this Wednesday, October 16th at 4 p.m. at City Hall is a workshop for tenants. This weekend, you don't need a permit. It's yard sale weekend, so if you have some stuff that you want to get rid of before the winter comes, or Halloween stuff that you want to sell, you can do that out in your driveway, your front yard with no permit. That's Saturday and Sunday, October 19th and 20th. Also want to mention we have a deadline coming up, but also just to mention that it's out there. Right now, we have the opportunity is open for residents to submit photos, names of family members, friends, pets who've passed on that they would like to have featured in the community altar at the Dia de los Muertos event later this month on October 31st. The deadline is October 25th. If you just go to Bell Gardens Connect and look at the events calendar, or if you just go to Bell Gardens calendar and click on October 25th, that's the deadline day, and you'll see the information there to submit information that you would like to be included. I just have two more things that I would like to report. The first of the two is our Community Development Department is looking for volunteers to be on a Climate Action Plan Steering Committee. So the city's working on a Climate Action Plan, and what we're looking for is residents or other stakeholders in the city that may have experience in healthcare, may have experience in sciences, environmental issues, if they're involved in a nonprofit, if they've suffered from some environmental issues, from every angle that you can think of that a resident or a stakeholder in Bell Gardens might have something to add to the steering committee that will help put together this climate action plan. We have been posting that on Instagram, so if somebody is interested, if they were to reach out to Adrian in our Community Development Department, or you could just submit a request through Bell Gardens Connect generally, and we'll get you in the right place. The last thing I want to mention, every once in a while we hit a new social media milestone. Always appreciative to Jaila Soto, the assistant to the city manager, and also to Jen Pineda, the executive assistant to the city manager, serving as a backup and assisting Jaila's. So we're up to 8,000 followers on Instagram. And I think, I always go back to mentioning Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Barcena back in 2019. We met personally, Jaila's, myself, Marco, and talked about setting up social media for the city. At the time, we had a goal of 2,000 to 3,000 followers in a 1 to 2 year time frame. It took us about 2 years to get to 4,000 followers. Now we're getting about 800 to 1,000 new followers every 7 to 8 months. I think Jaila's has some ideas on what generates new followers, videos.
Squirrels.
What was it?
Squirrels.
Squirrels. So thanks, I think just thanks everybody for the support on the social media side of things. It's a really effective way for us to get information out. We used to write press releases, put those out. Not a lot of press might be interested. In this case, we put something out. There's 8,000 followers that get the information. And out of a city of about 39,000 residents, according to the census, if you figure each follower hopefully covers 2 or 3 people by word of mouth, we're getting up to maybe a 75% coverage rate. So I just want to say a big thanks to Jaila's for keeping up with the social media posts all weekend long at night and things of that nature. I think the next one will be 9,000, and then we'll have to do some sort of a big celebration, I think, when we get to 10,000 followers, which, based on the way the numbers are going, will be in about 14 months. So maybe 13 if Jaila's gets super creative. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We will now move to the consent calendar. Does any member of the council successor agency wish to pull an item for separate discussion? No. Hearing none, I will now call for a motion to approve items number 2 through 9 of the consent calendar.
I'll move.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Yes, thank you. Members of the council successor agency, Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena.
Yes.
And Mayor Gomez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 10?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Gomez. This item is the usual local commission's appointment list. It's staff's recommendation that council review the commission's appointment list and by motion, receive commissioners and or make appointments to the posted vacancies. Thank you, Mayor.
Does any member of the council have any changes to make? No, none? Okay, so may I have a motion?
It's not
Sorry.
necessary
Oh,
for, if there's
which-
no action
Am I on
taken.
the wrong page here? Oh, Lord have mercy. Sorry, everyone. Apparently I didn't have enough coffee today. Okay, so, City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 11?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Gomez. So this item is the consideration of a resolution to approve a City Bell Gardens Municipal Water System Water Shortage Contingency Plan. Before I turn it over to our Public Works Director, Bernie Iniguez, just like to say on water, kind of as we wrap up this 2024 year and we move into 2025, there are a couple big water items that are on the table. One's the Aquatic Center, so obviously that's under construction. We're less than a year away from water being in that swimming pool. Two, we continue working on the water system, specifically funding the design and funding of a cleanup process for the well water that we have in the city of Bell Gardens. And the next thing that we're always working on trying to get ahead of is the next drought. We have a La Nina cycle that's coming, so while we had an excess of water this last year with all the atmospheric rivers, not necessarily expected to continue going forward, and state law requires for us to plan for these potential future shortages. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bernie. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I'll give you some background. In 2021, Governor Newsom signed SB 552 into law, and this established drought planning requirements for small water suppliers. These are systems with less than 3,000 connections and serving less than 3,000 acre-feet of water per year. Our water system has approximately 1,650 connections and serves approximately 1,000 acre-feet per year. Therefore, our system is subject to SB 552.
And Bernie, just to clarify again, I know we talk about water a lot, but it's been a little while. The reason there's 1,650 connections, that doesn't sound like a lot for the whole city of Bell Gardens. Just a reminder for the council and for anybody watching, approximately 30% of the customers for residential water are served by the city's municipal water system. The other 70–75% are served by the Golden State Water Company. So this plan would be just specifically to the water system that's owned and operated by the city.
That is correct. Yeah, Golden State has their own plan, but they serve more customers. So under these SB 552 requirements, it includes adoption of an abridged water shortage contingency plan, requires posting of this plan on the city's website, requires annual reporting of water supply conditions and usage by month, and it requires upgrading infrastructure to drought resilient standards if necessary. The goal of the plan is as follows. One, to help conserve the available water supply in the state of California, and also two, to protect the integrity of the water system supply facilities to minimize the adverse impacts of water supply shortages. The plan will allow the city to implement drought response stages and actions depending on the level of the drought conditions, and it will also allow the city to be in compliance with the new law. The city's water shortage contingency plan includes the following elements of public education, coordination with regional water planning groups, a summary of drought response triggers, and it also includes permanent water conservation requirements, which are already contained in the city's municipal code. It includes enforcement actions and also waivers from the plan's requirements. The plan includes response stages and response actions. In all, there are 6 response triggers that vary from a warning all the way up to an emergency. And there are response actions that include 3 levels of water supply shortage measures. These include limitations on the use of water for irrigating and also for vehicle washing. Under a level 1 action, this will limit watering lawns to no more than 3 times per week from April to October, and 1 time per week from November to March. Under a level 2 action, this will limit watering of lawns to 2 times per week from April to October, and one time per week from November to March. A level 2 would also limit vehicle washing, and it would also limit filling residential pools and spas. Under a level 3 warning, that's the highest warning, this would prohibit any watering of lawns and non-athletic fields, and also vehicle washing and filling of residential pools. These response actions would then be terminated when drought conditions cease to exist, and this will be based on the Department of Water Resources Water Watch Drought Map. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt the resolution approving the City of Bell Gardens Municipal Water System Shortage Contingency Plan. That concludes my presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does any member of the council have any questions or comments?
Just for clarification, this plan is only for the non-residents that don't get serviced by the Golden State Water Company, correct?
That is correct, just for the Bellflower Municipal Water System.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you.
And Bernie, I think just for the council's knowledge, the Golden State Water would be expected to have a similar plan, maybe some small variations between them as far as the response, or would their responses to the same triggers be identical?
Their plan is actually more, I wouldn't say egregious, but more prevalent than ours. Ours is more of an abridged plan because we're a smaller system. They're a larger one, triggering over the requisite number of accounts. So Golden State actually already has their in place for the last couple of years. This is just new for smaller water systems to, again, capture all the suppliers in the state of California.
And just very quickly, what area of the city is under the Golden State water system?
The Golden State system is the lower 2/3 of the city.
Lower 2/3?
Yeah, the higher 1/3, closer to the high school, for example,
Got it.
north of Gage.
North of Gage.
Predominantly the city's water system.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-82 approving the City of Bell Gardens Municipal Water System Shortage Contingency Plan?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
I second.
City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the council and successor agency, Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena.
Yes.
And Mayor Gomez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 12?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Gomez. This next item is a report of responsive action on mobile home park complaints, specifically the complaints that were received.
City Manager?
Sorry, I think that's 13. We're on 12.
Mine might be too much caffeine. Sorry about that, Mayor and Council. My apologies. Item number 12 is a resolution in support of Measure G for a more accountable, transparent, representative LA County government. This is a ballot measure. This item was requested by Councilmember Chavez for the council's consideration in signing a resolution that would support this measure. So with that, I will. Actually, we don't have a presentation for this, so I can talk this through a little bit, and then I'll turn it over if Councilmember Chavez wants to say a few words about it.
Take it away, Mike.
Okay, so this is a ballot measure that the county has put on the ballot. It somewhat uniquely has support from several Board of Supervisors, and it also has opposition from several Board of Supervisors of LA County. So the supervisory board currently is 5. It would be increased. The argument for it would be that there would be additional representation in areas that may feel otherwise underrepresented. So if their representative currently, it's 1 of 5, maybe doesn't know that particular area of their supervisorial district. If you had 8 supervisors, the likelihood that your supervisor would have a better understanding of your specific community would be greater. The opposition argument is that it's additional bureaucracy. It would cost more money, even if which there is a requirement that it can't cost more financial dollars. But the argument would still be that there's additional effort that may not just be financial, but it'd be other resources and time and energy that goes into managing, staffing, supporting 8 supervisors as opposed to 5. Also includes an elected office of the CEO, which would be somewhat akin to a mayor of the county. It includes a position that currently does exist. And the final thing that I would say, to the extent, not sure how much bearing it has exactly, but the supervisor that currently covers the district that Bell Garden's in is in support of this ballot measure. And I think for the reasons that I described, just from the angle of providing additional representation for communities that otherwise may not feel represented. The county covers about 11 million residents, so if you divide that by 5, it's about 2.2 million residents per supervisor, and this would shrink that number down probably somewhere closer to about 1.4 million residents per supervisor. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions, and if Councilmember Chavez has anything you would like to add as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. I'm glad that this item is brought up, and essentially, I think this is an opportunity for communities like Bell Gardens from the Southeast LA region to finally have a seat at the table. And I'm really happy to see that we have strong leaders like Supervisor Janice Hahn, Supervisor Lindsay Horvath, and Supervisor Idla Solis that for the longest have been pushing for reform at the county level. But I mean, just reading up on the report, the county charter hasn't been changed really since 1912, right? And at that time, LA County had about 500,000 people, which is 500,000. And right now we're at 10 million, right? Close to 10 million. So each supervisor represents about 2 million people per se. And this would increase that from 5 members to another 4 with that county CEO mayor as well. And it's an exciting reform, and I'm all in for support. So I figured I'd bring it to the body, and formally we can, as the city of Bell Gardens, we could formally endorse this measure. So with that said, hopefully I can count on your support. And I don't know if this is the time for motions or not, but I'm more than willing to take questions as well.
I actually have a question. So very interesting measure. I've seen a lot of mixed support, even, for example, not so much opposing it or supporting it, but some sources are kind of staying neutral on it. I personally would like to know more about it. It sounds like there are good reasons to support it, but I was wondering, do you know if they're gonna redraw the boundaries, or how would Bell Gardens fit into this whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, the way I see it, or the way I've observed the reform ballot, is that there would be a recreation of the maps. The additional supervisors wouldn't go until 2032, or that would be the deadline. So there's still another 6-8 years or so for the reform to actually take into effect. 24, it'd be another 8 years or so, yeah. And that would be the sort of the deadline. And that's sort of the big part of the ballot measure. There's other key components as well, and various electeds throughout the state have come out and endorsed the measure. But I totally understand in terms of the questions of where the other one that Mike city manager mentioned was about the cost, right? But clearly in the ballot measure itself, there was the cost cannot increase, right? There was discussions about, okay, so how are the staff going to be determined, right? Who's going to have how many staff members? Those are details that still have to be worked out, but with the money that's already, new taxes will not be increased for this measure. That was a clear component of this. There's also going to be an independent ethics commission as well to monitor lobbying activities. There's also the county CEO that's also going to be elected. I feel anytime we give the community, we give the residents an opportunity to have a say in who their person that they work for, who's representing them. I think that's always good. More representation, more transparency. At the end of the day, it's for communities like Southeast LA to not be alongside perhaps bigger cities, right, like Long Beach, that for a long time, if we look in terms of voting discrepancies, communities like that tend to have the most attention, right? And we don't have Southeast LA, whether that be Bell Gardens, Bell, Maywood, Cudahy, Southgate, Linwood, Vernon. We haven't had a person there to fully understand our communities, and they try to, but we don't have that say yet. So that's a little bit. Absolutely.
Any other comments?
You touched upon the budget, saying that one of the restrictions is that they cannot increase the budget, but yet they're going to increase different positions, they're going to increase supervisors. How do you think that's going to impact what we currently have in place?
I think that, again, the details still have to be flourished out in terms of staffing and who's going to be what field rep or who's going to be determining to who's. They have to work with what's set in the budget, and they made it clear from the get-go when there was a press conference announcing this back in like June or July that this was going to be, when we talk about budgets, we wanted to make sure that the residents know that taxes aren't going to go up. The increase to make this effort a reality is not, they're not going to feel it in their pockets. That's my understanding of it. And in terms of how is this going to reemphasize your point, I feel that this is something that perhaps if we have questions about, I'm more than willing to also provide the campaign's information.
And what's the motive or purpose, do you think, of us as a city supporting this? What benefit do we have by doing that right now for the fact that there's a lot of still unknowns?
I feel that, I think if we want to make sure Bell Gardens is a forefront leader across the Southeast LA region, I think it has to be a city like ours. Consistently, we talk about Bell Gardens being about innovation. Last meeting we had, we're talking about not superchargers, charging stations, and now we brought this other item regarding to that. I think if we really want to take Bell Gardens to the next level, I think it begins at the government side, right, with the county supervisors, and ensuring that we can say, set the standard, set the precedent for our neighboring communities like Maywood, like Bell, like Huntington Park, and Linwood and Southgate. And my hope is they would also fall in line and say, hey, you know what? It's time for our communities to have a seat at the County Board of Supervisors. And we want to ensure that it's not going to be this seat that's tied up in Lakewood and Paramount and Long Beach and Rolling Hills Estates or Palos Verdes. It's a seat for in the county for Southeast LA, CELA. That's why.
Thank you. And with that, may I have a motion to give me one moment. There I go again. Okay, with that, may I have a motion to adopt the attached resolution or to receive and file this item?
So moved.
May I have a
I'll
second?
go ahead and second that.
Okay, so this is a motion to adopt the resolution, correct?
Correct.
And that's a second for that.
Okay. City Clerk, may I please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you. And for clarification, because there are two motions that was read out, I just want to make sure the one that is being voted on is to adopt the resolution. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Member of the Council and Successor Agency Chavez.
Aye.
Council Member Sanchez.
Abstain.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena.
Yes.
And Mayor Gomez.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 13?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Gomez. This one is a report of responsive action update on the mobile home park complaint. As I mentioned in advance earlier, this is really to provide the council an update based on some of the specific complaints that came to the city in front of the council at the last council meeting about 3 weeks ago. As probably goes without saying, there's obviously privacy rights that we have to be concerned with all the parties, the people that have the complaint, the people that the complaint is towards. So we're providing an update in a way that's somewhat nebulous, but will give the council an idea of all the specific action that we've undertaken and the specific action that we're taking going forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Deputy City Manager, Community Development Director, Gus Romo. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, Mayor, members of the City Council. As you heard at the last meeting on September 23rd, there were some issues that some residents had over a particular unit. And during the time that the city staff has been looking at not just one mobile home park, but all 20 of the mobile home parks that we have, there are issues throughout. And one thing to keep in mind is that the jurisdiction for the mobile units falls under the State Housing and Community Development Department. And as what was brought up before, there is one inspector per 1,000 units. So it's only those that have life and safety issues that get recognized and are acted on quickly. We have been in contact with our inspector, who actually happens to be in Riverside. We have the information that we pass along to residents so that they can contact them with their issues. but there are certain issues that we can take care of. For instance, there was an issue of too many dogs on the property. Well, that is not tied to the unit. It's specifically our municipal code that says you can only have a certain number of dogs on a property. So that we can go ahead and issue a notice of violation, follow up with a citation, etc. But when it comes to the structure of the unit, that jurisdiction falls under the state, again, state HCD. So let me give you a little bit of background on this, and I won't read through this whole thing. This is just for the record. And by the way, this should say July 17th, 2024. My apologies for the error in the date there. We received complaints about odor, feces, and excessive number of pets at this particular unit. Code enforcement officer went out, was not granted full access, and again, the other issue that we have is sometimes the residents will not provide that access. So in this case, because they were elderly, we had a concern that nobody was answering, so our police department went out there on a wellness visit. Again, they found that no one was hurt, everything was okay, but because of the odors that were coming from this unit, we brought in social services. And so social services also went out there to do a wellness check. But again, if the resident does not want the service, they cannot force them to have that service. We also had SIACA go out there, and you heard from SIACA earlier today how busy they are, how stressed they are, understaffed and so forth. We were fortunate to have an inspector come out with us. They went ahead and looked at the situation, and they did find that it was an issue. But again, they need access to be able to go in. They could go ahead and try to force the issue and get the DA to issue a notice to go out there to be able to enter the property. And sometimes what they'll do is they say, hey, city, you take care of that. But again, animal control is not under our purview, so we have to make sure that animal control does their job. So just to go through this has gone forward. We visited, we put up door hangers. We've done as much as we can on our side. And now what we've done is we followed up with the state legislative department because we feel that they need to get on their inspector to do more. So we have a lady by the name of Annie Cetriano. Unfortunately, she's out this week, so she hasn't gotten back to us. But we are keeping contact with her because what we'd like to do ultimately is go out there with a state representative, a county representative, visit not just one park, but several parks. Because as you know, it's not just a problem in one. The other thing I'd like to point out to you is that at the end of the day, all of our parks here are jurisdiction under the state. There are some cities that have some parks under their own jurisdiction, like the city of Bell, for instance. They own 2 parks. They have jurisdiction, complete control over them. You could always come back and tell the state, hey, we want to take over this jurisdiction. However, that's something you can't take lightly because that responsibility is pretty hefty. It means all of a sudden you're going to double your code enforcement staff and your budget on that. So cities have to tread lightly when it comes to that.
Sorry, can you repeat that we can take over the what?
We can request to take over the jurisdiction of the parks, yeah. But again, like I said, that's very time-consuming, and it's a big responsibility. So if you did want staff to look at that, we could look at that process, talk to our city attorney, talk to the state, to see what are the repercussions of that. Anytime I've seen a city go in that direction, they always come back and say, no, let the state continue with what they do on their enforcement issue. Yes, sir.
Quick question, sorry about that, Mayor. Do you mean, when you say take over, do you mean the city can purchase the trailer park?
No, in terms of taking over the responsibility of the enforcement.
Okay, got it.
Correct.
But we wouldn't be the
The owners now.
like the one in Bell.
Correct. Bell happens to own 2 large parks. Yes. So, and also keep in mind that we struggle as staff to make sure that the residents have those resources that they call in, and we try to handhold to make sure that it happens. But we understand their concerns because whenever they do call, again, they run into a block wall. You know, if they can't get somebody to call us, if we can't get somebody to call us back, imagine the resident. I mean, they get very frustrated over that, and over time they just give up. We don't hear complaints for some time until something big happens, and then they're calling us, hey, can you help us out? And I really appreciate the young lady's comments earlier today. She knows how hard we're working out there to try to get this resolved. So ultimately, we're going to continue consulting with HCD. We need as much help as we can get to make sure that they listen to us. We might have to take a drive down to Riverside and confront the inspector and say, hey, here's what's happening. Let me show you a video of the parks and have them prioritize, our situation. That's all I had to report. Let me know if you have any questions.
And Mayor, if I can add, first off, I'm picturing Gus in a First Amendment auditor role down there in Riverside with cameras and that trying to access. No, but that's a good idea. I just want to make sure, though, even to kind of focus back on specific, some of the things Gus was talking about are the more broad, I think, fix going forward that's not just related to the complaints that you heard at the last meeting. So just to cover, kind of go back to the specific complaints at the last meeting, we're still taking action, the action that we can take without HCD. So for instance, we've been out there, I think, on 5 or 6 occasions in the last 21 days. It's been from the police department to code enforcement to our housing department multiple times, code enforcement multiple times. One of the and we think there are some things going on with that specific property that are outside of compliance with the municipal code that are causing a lot of the complaints that we heard about yesterday or at the last meeting regarding smells. That possibly a good portion of that is related to animals and things of that nature. So the notices that Gus particularly mentioned that we can enforce, that we're able to cite people for, are municipal code and violations regarding a number of animals and things of that nature. Those are things we don't need any help with. We can do ourselves. So as he mentioned, we went and door knocked, issued a notice of violation, followed up with an administrative citation, which contained a monetary fine, and then we would expect to have another administrative citation between now and the next 12 hours or so with another administrative fine. Those ultimately end up being referred to the city prosecutor. There was an attorney here earlier that mentioned we have a contract with that does that type of work. So the purpose of those specific actions is to eliminate a condition. I'm being a little bit blurry in what I'm saying, but eliminate a condition that would seem to lead to a lot of the complaints regarding smells. So when you have a lot of animals, humans living together beyond certain limitations, it lends itself to those types of issues. And then kind of cutting forward to some of the things that Gus talked about as far as HCD. Gus and I have also talked with our code enforcement about what are some things that we can do with our municipal code enforcement abilities while we're still kind of waiting for HCD to really help us take the bull by the horns. So there's some things that we talked about regarding authority that we have over permanent structures. So even though there's some limited authority over the actual mobile home units, if there are permanent structures on site, which in some mobile home park cases there are, specifically for the one we had complaints about, there are some physical structures that are not mobile homes that we may be able to take some action and enforcement against towards the property owner to fix that would help improve the property. So the point of what I'm saying before I stop talking is I think it's important for the city to do everything that the city can do, that the city has power to do. While we need HCD to really help us to fix the problem from a bigger picture perspective, I think at the same time we have to put in the energy and effort to exhaust all of the abilities that we have to enforce our own municipal code, whether that's through the police department, whether that's through code enforcement, our housing department, and that's what we are continuing to do with this specific complaint that we got. So thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Gus, for the presentation also.
Any other comments?
Yes, I would like to listen to our residents and also listen to our staff. First of all, I want to say I'm proud of our residents for being patient and resilient and coming here and talking about their experience, which is not easy, especially for those of us that are not bilingual, right, in our communities. So I'm proud of you guys. Thank you. Thank you to staff for, I can tell as the residents themselves highlighted, I can tell that you guys are doing everything you can. And I appreciate that, and I know that they appreciate it too. Thank you to the council, but I want to make sure that we continue to the best of our ability, right? Now that we have our residents that are actively speaking out, now that we have our staff doing whatever they can within their bounds, I feel like us as a council, we need to get a little bit organized in terms of getting a response from HCD after, if staff is not able to have that response from them, if things are lagging too much, maybe we can get a letter going, maybe we can sign that letter, maybe we can call our representatives together, right? Because we know that this is real, we know that it's a concerning matter, and we know that even if this gets fixed here, we know that there are a lot of underlying issues that are sort of replicas at different sites of these mobile home parks. So let's just line up and get ready for whatever's next, even if this does get resolved with this particular site. So I would encourage, maybe I can ask for this to be brought back so that we can kind of keep our eye on it and keep kind of working through it. That will be my request.
Thank you so much, staff, the residents. I appreciate the opportunity to go out today and see the living conditions, for allowing me in your homes, and to really see firsthand your experience day to day. And I appreciate you coming here and sharing your experience with us, because it's important. Just as you were in the last meeting, you came to this meeting, and I encourage you to continue coming to the meetings, because it's important for all of us here to consistently hear your experience day to day. I'd like to echo the comments of Mayor Pro Tem Barson as well. Thank you to our staff. Thank you to our officers who went out there, Siaka as well, who was out there, Community Development Director and the Housing Manager, and also Mike, City Manager, for doing everything possible within the municipal code to enforce, and I appreciate it. What I want to add is today the experience and the things I saw are more so in regards to the habitability. There you go, habitability, something like that, and the conditions as to what we can enforce as a city, right? It's funny because last week I was at a La Casa meeting, and we had talked about potentially having ownership of some of the mobile home parks, taking ownership of them, like the city of Bell does. And there was one key distinction that was different, is that these mobile home parks, these trailers that people live in, are considered vehicles, but in reality, they're not vehicles. They don't move. They stay in their place and they're there forever. I went to the mobile home park that I was at today. I asked if any other vehicles moved, and none of them. They've been sitting there for plus 30 years or so. So I think that's the first thing, that we should stop considering them as mobile, because they're not mobile, they're homes. Another thing is there needs to be more clarification when it comes to the trailer itself and then the land itself. I know in the past we've had issues where whether or not rent stabilization applied to them, if it applied to the space or if it applied to the lot as a whole. I mean the space or the trailer. And I think we passed another ordinance to ensure that it was the same across the board. So that was another issue. But I know in other cities that's separate. In other cities, rent stabilization does not apply to the mobile home, and that's what I've heard too. I was in the La Casa meeting. So the questions I have is for HCD to allow us to take jurisdiction of the parks. You mentioned Community Development Director. You mentioned that it'll force us to increase our staff when it comes to code enforcement. How many more staff members?
That's something we haven't had a chance to assess, council member, but ultimately that's something, if you direct us to do, we can go ahead and take a look at if that's even an option. And keep in mind too that the mobile home units themselves, they are registered under DMV as opposed to a pre-manufactured home, because there are mobile home parks out there that have a prefab home that's sitting on a foundation. Some of them even own the land underneath them, and everything else is common space. So there's just different types of mobile home parks out there.
Got it. I'm interested in seeing potentially how much that would increase, or how many more staff members we would need to allow us to have a fully staffed code enforcement team to be able to go out, because it's not only, as Mayor Pro Tem Barcena mentioned, it's not only this mobile home park. This is the only one we're hearing about, but during that La Casa meeting, I texted the city manager and community development director. I said, how many mobile homes parks do we have across the city? And correct me if I'm wrong, but we have 20 of them.
Correct.
Yeah. So to me, this is one story, and I want to make sure that we can get ahead of the problem if it becomes worse. The second thing I want to ask is in regards to retaliation and harassment. I know that there are laws, or one of the things that we had passed was when we passed just cause evictions. One of those components was in regards to tenant harassment, and the only person that can come out and evict you out of your property is the sheriff. Not even our own officers can come and do that. So can we do anything in regards to retaliation or harassment? Because one of the things I heard today was, after we went to the city council meeting in the last meeting, things got worse. And now this person who is at this space is harassing all of us, and they're retaliating against us. They showed me a letter today that they got from the California Public Utilities Commission that says that they have to clean up all around their boiler and their gas setup outside. And this was a direct response because they came to this council meeting and they mentioned their problems that they were going through. And it wasn't just, and I asked them, and I saw their properties today, and they had it all cleaned up. They said, we did our part because we don't want any trouble, but things have gotten worse with this specific unit. Can we do anything in regards to retaliation or harassment?
We can look into it. Now that we have our housing inspector, that inspector focuses on those issues, and they can put them in contact with Stay House LA or the Legal Aid Foundation. If there's nothing that we can specifically do on that, then we can get those resources for them. And I do know that sometimes when there's a complaint from one neighbor to another, next thing we find is that the other neighbor is also complaining about that neighbor. And so we go back and forth on that. But regardless, we look into that issue to substantiate the complaint, and at the end of the day, regardless of where that complaint came from, if it's substantiated, then we're going to go forward and issue a notice of violation.
Thank you. One key thing that I mentioned today with the residents was if the residents are gonna get together and they're coming together to this body and they're willing to go to the inspector, is they have to do their part too. And just as in my experience, I live with my parents, I'm a renter, and the landlord happens to live in the front house, and we had the insurance come in, and they had to make sure that we kept everything clean for that time, because they wanted to make sure that we were fire safety and good to go. And I told them the same thing. I said, if the inspector's gonna come, you have to be in order as well. No canopy set up, everything has to be in line. And they said they're willing to go through that extent because just how bad it is. And I understand that you mentioned that, you know, one neighbor might point a finger to this neighbor, and then the other neighbor might point a finger to them, and next thing you know, in this situation, it's not one neighbor pointing the finger to that one, it's everybody pointing it to one person in one unit. And it's just gotten worse. Specifically to habitable conditions, there's evidence where the gas setup is wrong, the electricity is wrong. SoCal Edison won't go in there to fix the situation because they don't know what they set up in that mobile home park. The map that's supposed to be used as a directory to all the units is all blocked up, and it can't be seen. And I think our officers might have seen that when they went out there. And Captain Musquiz, you can, if you have anything to report about that, that was one of the things that they mentioned, that it's all blocked up. One of the residents who happens to live next to the map had a stroke. And when the fire department came up, they were knocking on every trailer trying to find where that person was. It wasn't until the resident came outside crawling that the fire department was able to see them, because they couldn't see the directory of the map. To that issue, it's not on the mobile home park tenants. At this point, it's on the mobile home park itself, right? The tenants are they're just trying to survive. They're trying to figure out, and they come to this body in the last meeting. They came to this body today, and consistently they're going to come, and I'm trying to see if there's anything we can do in regards to habitable conditions with gas or electric or even the map setup.
Madam Mayor, if I may? So, Councilmember Chavez, I appreciate your concerns. I do want to point out something in regards to the data that was shown or the timeline that was presented. I noticed that the beginning of that timeline marked, I think, July of this year, where you made the correction about 2023. But I wanted to point out that some of the issues regarding, beyond the odor, for example, the electricity, for example, is a big one. There are emails and there is more documentation of requests for, not for service, but to inspect, right, to get help from the city that date back, well within 2023 and earlier that year. So as we bring this back, as we continue to work on a solution that's more extensive, that is not just about this particular case, maybe we can also start compiling that data so that we can have a cohesive sort of history of how this has been brought to the attention of the council and also our departments in the past. So, but I appreciate your concerns, Councilmember Chavez. And I would like to keep this alive, so maybe we can have an item for the next meeting. Even if there's not too much that happens between now and then, I just want to make sure that we stay on it. So I'd like to just make a motion now to bring this back to the following meeting. And perhaps we can talk to the city manager if any of us have a letter that they would like to put forth and anything else that might help. So, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena, I have another suggestion, and I feel like this is going to be an ongoing discussion, but I'd be willing, and this is something that maybe we could explore in more detail, because our council, we meet every second and fourth Monday, perhaps creating an ad hoc committee to maybe dive a little bit deeper into the issue, maybe not and we can start it off with this mobile home park, but from there expand it to the other 20 or so.
I personally don't oppose that, and if you guys want to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, I'm cool with that. I don't have a problem with it, and yeah. So.
Would you be open to amending the motion to include that as well?
Yeah, sure. We can amend the motion.
So a motion's not necessary. You could just give direction.
Okay, just direction to bring it to the next agenda, including the consideration of an ad hoc for this issue.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And again, thank you, Gus, and thank you, City Manager, and thank you to the residents for coming up.
Any other comments? I just want to thank you both for your comments. I completely agree with all of it, especially the part about looking into what it would take for us to regulate our own parks, because at 20 parks in this city, at 20 mobile home parks in this city, there's no hope that if HCD isn't coming out for one park, there's no hope for them to come out for any other parks. And I think that I certainly do want to issue a letter to our representatives, right, to bring this to their attention. I want to keep moving forward on that, but I also want to see what it's going to take for us to be able to regulate that. What's it going to take in terms of staffing, cost, all of that, because the only way we're going to know if we can do it is if we know how much it costs and what we can afford to do, right? So I'd like to explore that. And with that, let's see. May we have a motion to receive and file this report?
So moved.
Second? I'll second. City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Yes, thank you. Members of the Council, Successor Agency Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena.
Yes.
And Mayor Gomez.
Yes. And we will now move to member comments. Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you so much, everybody, for the council meeting. And with that said, thank you to all of our staff. Thank you to our officers. Thank you to SIACA for coming out and sharing your concerns. Personally, I'm with you, and hopefully, SIACA is willing to come to the bargaining table and fight for a fair contract. So, with that said, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Sanchez de Leon?
No comments.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena?
Yes, thank you everyone for everything you do here in the city. I want to thank the public comment people. I want you to know that SIACA is listening, the board is listening. We're working very hard to find the best solution. And I know it's not easy, and I hear you, right? I've been listening from the first time that you guys came in to provide public comment. And I know that you're being honest. I know that you care about not only your own job, but that you care about your colleagues, and we care about you too. It's not easy because, as you know, we have cities that through the city, we provide funding for SIACA. So we're doing everything we can. We have closed session items that I can't speak about. But one thing that I can tell you is that the board cares, and we want to make things better. And we're working really, really hard right now to make that happen. So I appreciate you being here. I'm listening, and I feel you. So I just want to put that out there, okay? Thank you.
Okay, and so I want to start with, first of all, thank you to everyone who came out to give their public comments today. You know, this is what keeps us informed, what keeps us on track, and what keeps us motivated is to hear from our constituents and to hear from our stakeholders. So thank you for being here tonight and for sharing your concerns. One other thing that I want to say is I want to thank a few of our residents who took the time to write me some letters about some issues that they have, you know, concerns that they have with what's going on in the city. And I truly do appreciate these letters because I do see all of these problems. We all see all of the problems that they're referring to. We have graffiti, we have vandalism, we have, you know, people that are unhoused. We have the parking situation. Those are like our major issues that we have in the city. And we are looking for ways to address them. But the main thing I want to say is that I appreciate these letters because I know how difficult it is for people to come, you know, to a city council meeting at this hour. People are getting home from work, they have children that they need to, you know, get ready for school the next day. So it's not easy to come out here. But I appreciate that they send these letters and they take the time to write it because this is what informs discussions with our city manager, with our departmental directors, so that we can find solutions to these problems. So thank you for that. And, you know, keep the letters coming because we need to know, we need to keep hearing from you. The other thing that I wanted to say is thank you to staff for the community bike ride, to the police department especially for the community bike ride that we had 2 weekends ago. Our Sela to Sinaloa bike ride that is in collaboration with Sela Kiwanis. It's a fundraiser. Our Bell Gardens resident, Chayito Quintero, is currently in Gila Bend, Arizona. He rode from Yuma to Gila Bend, Arizona in 117-degree weather. And the reason he's riding is to raise funds, right? It's a fundraiser for Sela Kiwanis and for another organization here in the city that serves the community. So that's why he's doing this ride. So please check him out if you can on Instagram at Chayito01152. So you can follow his journey. He's posting from the road. Last night he camped out at a rest stop in a tent, sleeping on the ground, and then he still got up and did another 30, 40, I don't know how many miles in 117-degree weather to raise money. So please follow his account so you can see what it's all about and support if you can. Also, yes, the car show was amazing. Wonderful job that everyone did. Thank you, Councilmember Sanchez de Leon, for spearheading that. That was a great event. And I'm looking forward to all of the events that we have coming up this month of October. It's spooky season. It's going to be fun, a good time. I encourage all of our residents to please download the BG Connect app. Whenever you see, any kind of graffiti tagging, take a picture of it, upload it, so that it can get taken care of as soon as possible, okay? And also, one final reminder, the elections are next month, so if you have received your ballot in the mail, you do not have to wait until November 5th to complete your ballot and to submit it. We have an official ballot drop box at the library that's right next door to City Hall. So you don't need to wait until November 5th if you got your vote by mail ballot. Fill that out and turn it in, and that way you're done with it.
I was just going to say, happy belated birthday to our mayor.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will adjourn tonight. If there's no objection by the members, I will now adjourn the City Council Successor Agency meeting at 7:37 p.m.